Welcome back to Search with Sean, and this is obviously another Chat with Sean episode. We've got a return guest today, but as usual, I'll still do the intros because, you should know who he is, but if you don't, then this is who we have. So we have Dan Taylor, as you can see, and he is a partner and head of innovation covering search and AI at global organic growth agency SALT, and speaker at events like Google Search Central Live, Bangkok, World Travel Market, and the European Tourism Association. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining me again today, Dan.
No, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, well, a lot has changed since you last talked, to put it that way. So we've got a lot to go. Obviously, you've been focusing a lot on the kind of travel sector recently, which has been really interesting. Seeing your newsletters and stuff like that. With that focus, in regards to SEO and AI, like what's the most interesting things you're coming across at the moment?
I think there's probably two responses to that. There's an operational side in a lot of travel companies at the moment are either trying to capture their own kind of agents and AI bots on their sites to actually be useful in kind of the booking process. And then there's the actual production side of how they can use AI to be operationally more efficient. Whether that's not just producing content, but data analysis. Hotels, I can see using it to try and look at redundancy rates and fill rates and things like that and tie that to seasonal pricing. So it's quite interesting on that side. From a more unique customer acquisition side, I guess, which I tend to focus on a lot more, it's been curious to see how a lot of travel users from the data I've seen has seemed to be using AI more frequently. But then there are little flashes in the pan of using AI in short bursts and then going back to more traditional search methods. A really good example of this, I don't even remember my years now because I keep getting to 2026. I think it was towards the end of 24. Meta was running a really big kind of above the line campaign in the United States. They had, when they were starting to launch the Meta chatbot into Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all the rest of it, Good Morning America, here's a segment on how you can use Facebook to better plan your travel, how you can use Meta in WhatsApp group chats to do X, Y, Z. And every time there seems to be a bit of an above the line push, there seems to be a usage. I mean, it's almost like it's novel and kind of wears off and people are rebounding back to more traditional methods. Now, they're rebounding back, but some are still retaining and using the new methods. So I kind of guess it's just going to be an attrition over the next few years as to whether people fully adopt a third-party LLM. Definitely seeing higher adoption in things like AI mode, but it's all a fun time for me. It's a very exciting time in the travel sector because over the last 10, 15 years, if not more, there's always been that notion of bias for big brands in not just travel, but across Google search. And to a point, that bias is kind of almost like a confirmation bias that if you're Booking.com or Expedia, then you have the big media budgets, you can invest in X, Y, Z, and you do all the traditional marketing, you invest in brand. And I always go back to an old thing. If you search for Pepsi, or you search for a specific brand, or you search for a non-brand search on Google, there's almost like a user expectation that certain brands will be there. And that SERP still has to be useful. It's not just an algorithmic index of the ranking factors and various weightings. There's also about like user experience side to it as well, which I sometimes think you forget. But this is a great opportunity for travel brands as a whole to capitalize and develop in their categories.
Yeah, fascinating. I have so many questions. I was thinking, what was we get onto I want to talk about the likes of Expedia and stuff in a second as well, because I find that interesting. But why do you think, I know because it's new and people are getting used to it, but what do you think are the main reasons why people aren't maybe going the whole time with AI results? Do you think there's still a trust factor, or they're not delivering, do you reckon? Or
I don't necessarily think it's trust or not delivering, but there's an element of comfort as well because we've got to think, for the most part, the internet hasn't been around. I mean, it's been around for long for a lot of us now, but it's only been a blip in sort of the timeline of a lot of users. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s and I can remember being sat at my dad's Windows 95 and 97 desktop in his office room and hearing the dial-up tones and whatnot, so I could go online and play Neopets and all that jazz. And we've kind of grown up with it, but there's a large generation, if not multiple generations above me, who've kind of learned a certain level, and there's an element of change to this. And it's not like we're being forced from one to the other because the old one's being deprecated. It's just this is the way we've done things. It's like it's like a subconscious brand loyalty in the sense of, I used to Google it. I mean, Google became part of the vernacular. Before Google, Wells Jeeves. It's always been that kind of that search bar. And this is a platform change. It's an interface change, and it will take time to get used to. And I think with all kind of adoptions, you have early adopters and then you have laggards right at the end. And those were really resistant to change. And I just think it exists, whether or not people are going to go and use it for full journey, or they're going to use a mixture of traditional search, mixture of AI. They're also much more exposed than what we were before. I remember when I was at university, I got my first iPhone. Before then, I was on a BlackBerry Messenger because BBM messaging was all correct trades and everything like that. And I was like, oh, wow, I've got an iPhone. I can play, Angry Birds and things like that. And then, I can download Facebook. And then now it's almost second nature with smartphones. But it's that shift and still the adoption phase. And it's moving a lot faster in terms of technology than what the market and the mass market is traditionally keeping up with. And yeah, we look at it, in my opinion, from a very narrow lens that we say, well, Google still drives 190 something plus times more traffic than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT's got 12% of the market. I think that's the latest stat. And the top of the funnel's dead and things like that. It's like, well, we're making an assumption that people are just using one or the other. People bounce around, and for a number of years, it was only 3-4 years ago when we was having an argument in the industry whether or not TikTok was a search engine. People go on YouTube, they look at videos, people read magazines, they watch TV, they're exposed to advertising. And Darren Brown did a thing, I want to say 10 years ago, but it's probably more than 10 years ago now because I just keep getting older, as we all do. But you got two big advertising executives, I think it was from Mother in London, was the agency. You go on YouTube, it's really good. But he showed about how many influences you could have that influence even people's, what they think is autonomous decision making. And that was all we had, your Instagrams, Reels, your TikToks and everything else like that, as just barrages of information and influence constantly that shapes perception.
Interesting. I might show a clip in, if I can find the clip, I'll try and insert it of that.
Masters of persuasion, they subtly weave their images and slogans into our daily lives, knowing that we will register so much unconsciously. And then we walk into a supermarket and feel a sense of familiarity with a product we think we've never heard of. Millions of pounds a year are spent on it. It's brilliantly calculated, and we all fall for it. So I thought I'd turn the tables on the advertising experts. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Tony, yes?
Yes, that's right.
And Martin?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Darren. Let me get down to explaining exactly what I want you to do. Imagine that I'm opening a chain of stores selling a product, something I have a particular interest in. Your task is to come up with a poster advertising that store. And that poster must include the company name, whatever you decide that may be. It must include a strapline, some sort of slogan, and some kind of logo as well, some kind of visual image.
Sure.
Now, the idea is you've only got half an hour to do this, so you've got to really work with your first instinct. So at the moment, you've got no idea what you're going to do, correct?
No.
Excellent. I'm also going to give you this. I've had a few design ideas of my own.
Okay.
I'm going to leave this untouched. We'll come back to that later. All right? Are there any questions?
What's the product?
What's the product? Very good question. Passion of mine since I was a toddler. It's a chain of taxidermy stores.
Ooh.
Let me pop the pussycat on the envelope so it remains untouched. You have half an hour, gentlemen. Good luck.
Great, thanks. Right, let's go for it.
Get stuffed as a start.
Right. Animal Hospital, the ones who didn't make it. No, that's probably just stupid.
The wings.
All creatures great and small. Quality that says like nice, positive type dead animals. Animal heaven. Where animals go.
Animal heaven, that's good.
Graveyard.
Animal heaven's good.
Animal heaven.
Where the best animals go to.
Loads of clouds with animals on them.
Yeah,
Gates,
harps,
pearly gates, bear playing a harp.
Yeah. Only the best
Zoo.
get in. Only the best get into air.
Yeah, where dead animals go to live. Where the best.
The best place for dead animals? It's simple.
Time up, gentlemen. I can't wait to see what you've done. Come and show me.
Okay.
And Tony, before we do this, can you take the envelope I gave you earlier? And
Okay.
can you please vouch for us here that no one's been anywhere near it? It's been under a dead cat. No one's touched it.
That's right.
That's the truth.
That's
That's the
correct.
truth.
Keep hold of it. Come around here. Now, before we have a look at it, just tell me, what was it like?
We started off thinking about the name. we thought that was probably the best thing to
the
do.
starting point.
Sure.
And then take it from there, really. We banged out a lot of ones that were probably completely stupid, and then got down to the ones that were slightly stupid, and then we kind of, that went back and forth for a bit, and then kind of got something we liked and developed it.
Can I have a look?
Sure.
Sure.
Is this it?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's a bear with a lyre.
So it's animal heaven, the best place for dead animals.
And it's obviously, you'd see that it was stuffed.
How did you come up with the name Animal Heaven?
We had the idea of the pearly gates of heaven being a zoo gate.
Zoo gates as the gates of heaven. That's interesting.
i.e. sort of all the animals that are dead are in a dead zoo, if you like, in heaven. And then we just kind of thought, well, it's kind of nice, but it's a bit twee. We wanted to make it a bit funkier. And then we thought a hard-playing bear just answered the brief.
That's fantastic. I do want to show you my own ideas from beforehand.
Okay.
I don't want to touch. Would you open them for me?
Sure.
And the winner is...
I think you'll find this interesting.
Okay.
Look at the envelope.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. All right. Not a million miles away. Let me put this up there. Hang on to that. It's a heart-playing bear.
Yeah.
God.
You've gone for these angel wings here. Were you thinking of angel wings or bird wings?
Yeah, well, they were kind of a combination.
You do them a lot better than me. This was the same thing. I was thinking angel wings there. You've got animal heaven. I got creature heaven.
Yeah. So
We're the best.
you're a bit off there then.
A bit off there. Where the best dead animals go. Did you put best place for dead animals?
Wow.
Very similar. I had the idea of a zoo gate on there.
It was hard to
We
leave
didn't,
out.
we didn't overload
It
it.
was hard to leave out, but
Sure.
it was just a bit too much.
Can I see your other the other one you were talking
Yeah,
about?
put
Is
it
it-
down. Yeah, it's just before there.
Is it very different?
Well,
Well, it's just the gates.
yeah.
Oh, gentlemen, please.
We're drawn quite similar.
Look at that. This was the image I was thinking. I've done it there in the background because this to me was the more striking image. And interestingly, you abandoned this for this one. This was
Yeah.
obviously
But
clear in your mind.
the first bear I drew looks exactly like that one, actually.
It did, yeah.
The first bear you drew.
Yeah,
Picture on the
shall I
pad,
show
yeah.
you on the notes?
Show me.
like that,
Show
yeah.
me. What have you got?
Well, this is scary.
But yeah, it's interesting. I think, yeah, you're right. And what was like, I've done a recent search on ChatGPT looking for a cottage around Cornwall, that area. And what was interesting is like, it only really came back with like one real source of like recommendations, like different kind of cottages and stuff, but they're all from the same site. It was from, a place called Sykes, I think Sykes Cottages, and I'm like, that was a bit strange. I would have expected like different sites.
Here's one of the things, because as we are inherently built for comparison as humans, we don't, if we're looking with something here, but we again, this is an assumption I think we're making. We assume that when people use AI, they're taking it as a bait man from a final solution. We're being presented almost like a single perfect choice. But no one really makes decisions in that way. If we're doing something informational like how to soft boil an egg or something like that, but like you said there, you're doing a search, you want your variety, you want to be presented, you want the friction reducing to find the best options for comparison. And especially when it's a considered purchase or anything like that, you never you don't go to a car dealership and first one you see on the lot, you go, right, it's in budget, it's the colour I like, it's got 5 doors, sold. You compare, you shop around, you go to the market. It's a natural, this is a behaviour that we've had for hundreds of years, ever since we've had commerce. Okay, 800, 900 years ago, it would have been comparing things at the market. Now it's comparing things online. It's just natural human behaviour. We do things, we look at alternatives, trade-offs, we use context and personal intelligence that might impact context moving forward, but we need those AI systems to present multiple variations and possibilities for us to choose from. And your example, when I'm doing a cottage, so I've literally just booked a little cottage getaway with my wife. I opened up the 4 or 5 brands I know, put them all on filters, and then started looking through. And then when I found 2 or 3 options I liked, I started shopping around on the 2, 3 ones which I had open just to see who had a better price. And it's a learned behaviour. And I mean, I like to think I'm quite early adopter with AI. But there's still that need to having confidence in themselves to make and find the decision and find the information.
Yeah, I mean, it did end up me doing a similar thing to what you said, to be honest, because yeah, I just wanted that variation. But in terms of like the traffic and stuff for the travel sector, obviously it varies. There's so many forms of different travel sites, and there's like the aggregators and the sort of like general like specialists and stuff. But how's like the traffic kind of been for them in comparison to like all other industries?
From what I've seen, I think it's been, obviously there's a lot of seasonality in travel, which kind of impacts it. And it's very hard sometimes to kind of, because annoyingly, all the large LLM stuff happens outside of that window and doesn't comply in your seasonality for nice data. But ever since the advent of ChatGPT-5, ChatGPT traffic seems to have dropped considerably in a lot of sites, not just in travel, but across all. And I think that's kind of widely acknowledged now as the fact that ChatGPT-5 doesn't present as many links as what forwarded, meaning users are more in a closed loop ecosystem and not clicking out. But then also the third-party tools who are trying to tackle AI visibility in the same way they tackle rank tracking, they don't have the URL as a hook anymore to report on. So it looks like it's going down, but it's not. People are just, oh, Dan's travel company site here, copy, new browser or new window, direct. And it's just a different situation. We've got attribution drift happening everywhere. And not just me, but a lot of really smart people in the industry, plus me, because I realised I put myself in the smart people cat rocket there. But for the past 2 decades, we've forced to settle metrics and attribution sets on clients and told them, like, judge us by these, but the wheels have quickly come off that wagon, and now I have to do full education pieces. And I keep saying it's an exciting part for me to be in the industry. And the last thing I can remember being this disruptive was Penguin, and even then I don't think it was this wide scale and impact.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying what you're saying, so yeah, it makes sense. And we'll get on to like yeah, I guess it covers a similar topic, but you know, with all this sort of new AI world and features being brought out by Google and large language models, like how do, in the long term view, how do travel companies sort of you know, compete and still sort of survive? Because obviously travel agents have been kind of up against it for a while for many reasons. And then like, you know, but even now I'm interested to see how like the likes of Expedia and stuff are doing, because like I say, they didn't come up in my searches. And yeah, finally, like I saw Chris Long, he did a thing a couple of weeks back about Kayak and what they're doing with their AI sort of tool on their website. They look quite good. So yeah, just, you know, a lot of stuff there, but this is what you're seeing basic.
I think you could probably book it into 3 different approaches. And this doesn't mean like as a travel company that you want a wheel that you can blend the buckets or take all 3, but there's the Kayak example, which a lot of other large travel agencies are doing, and even outside of travel, like Amazon, Rufus, things like that, where you're creating your own agents on site. So it's kind of a closed ecosystem. It's a friction reducer. It's trying to provide almost like a concierge, but AI driven, to reduce that friction, get users to a decision process quicker, smoother, whilst giving them the ability to compare. And if it's using any over time personal context models or things like that, it can really be beneficial. And it also helps create that brand loyalty, because if you then as a user use it, you get a positive experience, you go, oh, that was really quick to do, I didn't have to spend ages looking at different websites, X, Y, Z. You build a brand loyalty, and you almost kind of start to then hand off cognitive load. And the minute you start handling off cognitive load, that just becomes a schema in terms of a learned reality, not the structured data. A-level psychology coming out there a little bit, but it works in that same way. The other element to it is being ready for external agents. And what that looks like, we don't yet know, because as an industry, with 1 week we're arguing about LLMs.txt. The next week we're arguing about whether or not we should put pages in structured markup. Like, at the moment, we're breaking new ground across everything and just trying different things and correlating with what is effective and what isn't. My personal stance on it is, if someone like Google developing an agentic capability, it is developing the agentic capability for the internet as it is now, not requiring websites to jump through hoops and things like that. So, because from a product perspective, if Google launch a Gemini agent or something like that, and they go, oh, you can ask this to go book you a premiere in Slough or something like that, other glamorous locations are available, but you then kind of expect Google's agent to understand how to do that based on the current web, because at launch, it has to function out of the box and it has to provide a positive user experience. That's why I have issues like so with LLMs.txt, for example. So LLMs.txt was proposed by Andre Karpathy, who was a co-founder of OpenAI. He's ex-Tesla AI as well, and a few other places. I think he's Hugging Face now. He proposed LLMs.txt as a way of accessing pre-AI era content. So PDFs and other non-OCR and non-parsable documents and things like that. Yes, crawlers interact with LLMs.txt because it's a text file, but Google interacts with a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean it uses it or logs it. And again, from a product mindset, if you're producing something which you want mass adoption to occur on, you do it based on the system that's there and not relying on the entire system to change to make your product work. And okay, Google has a little bit more impetus in that, considering the HTTPS migration, the mobile getter and things like that. So it does have a sway, but not to the level, or I think it has to do that because it's not just people like you and I who optimize websites for a living who's worried about it. He's worried about like my dad, my brother-in-law, people who aren't web savvy because they need that product to be mass market out of the box. And then the third side to it is how we look at the user journey in AI. So I've published a few things on this, and I've kind of called it moving from long tail to infinite tail, because we always, as I share, love to categorize the name things. We had short tail keywords, long tail keywords. Now we're just infinite tail in the sense that it could be, and we see this in even like the advertising that Google uses, the advertising that Samsung has used to demonstrate Gemini as a product feature and a USP for a phone, and it's really specific use case, long tail search. It's interacting with the voice search to summarize articles or find XYZ. It's using multiple data sources which aren't implied in the query. It's using images. It's using everything. It's a multimodal, multi-platform search. So we're not just looking at it from a sense of keyword defined demand. We're not kind of going like, we need to rank for these keywords. We're looking at going, right, we need to rank for these topic areas, which is quite blasé, but that does drill down into indexed and relevant to certain keywords, having documents or web pages, citational documents on the site that refer to it, but then also understanding where we sit in regards for fan out query and then the grounded queries. So it's a much more complex ecosystem, and I understand that there's the crowd of, oh, it's just SEO. There's a lot of crossover with SEO, but it's a huge mindset shift within it. And some businesses will do well still by just doing all traditional SEO tactics, because fundamentally the internet shaped box has not changed overnight. And I don't see the internet changing shape. The future, it's still HTML websites, it's still JavaScript, the functionality is still the same. So it isn't the case of like, overnight you have to throw the baby out of the bathwater, you have to change everything immediately. But there's a definite amount of a lot more considerations that needs to be made.
Yeah, it is a fine balance between understanding like what you're saying about current dynamics versus future proofing and sort of being ready for what may come up. But it'll be interesting, obviously, like Expedia and things like that. I guess they're going to have more sort of apps and ties into like the large language models and stuff like they're doing. But what do you think it's going to give more travel companies a lot more of a chance? If they optimize correctly, they could possibly come up with them like for those very personalized searches, you know.
Yeah, I think the next stage for users is to move towards that hyper-personalization phase. And that's not just through personal intelligence and Google knowing what you did last summer in your Gmail and photos and stuff like that. It is, if we look at how these solutions have been advertised by Google, by Samsung, etc., it is very much a very hyper-personalized, low infinite tail keyword of, oh, find me a gym within 20 miles of Shoreditch train station with wait. There's just so much more information going on to these queries because he's promoting a conversational-led query, which is something we probably looked at when voice search was becoming a thing, when everybody took that ComScore statistic and misused it. But I was like 40% of all searches voice search, and it was just like, yeah, this is why we don't read exact summaries of PDFs behind paywalls. But it's that infinite tail phase is what we're grown to, and I think companies that are able to show expertise and have experience. I think I wrote in one of my LinkedIn things, experience is almost like the form, or going to be one of the form of backlinks. And a couple of, I think it was Christ, 2023, there was a large Google update, I think in the August, and a lot of affiliate websites really suffered from it. And I went through about 100 travel websites of that, and they're all blogs, and they're all complaining on Reddit and in forums that the traffic had been hit. And I'm going through one of them and I'm like, okay, that week you wrote about getting a visa in China. The next week you wrote about the 10 best hidden bars in New York. Now you're writing about which skis to buy for what kinds of snow. And I'm like, there's no way you're an expert on any of this. There's no proof. There's no validation. There's no methodology behind it. It's just, you're sticking up stuff based on affiliate and people probably paying for links and stuff, to be completely frank. And then there was one I found which their traffic had rocketed through the roof. And it was a guy who literally blogged about travel luggage. And his post frequency was erratic, but every single post, there was clearly a picture of him with the luggage. He was doing packing tests. He was throwing it downstairs. He was like, you looked at that and you instantly crossed, like, he's bought this or he's been given it, like, either up, but he's actually tested it. It's not like you got on like Instagram and TikTok at the moment where people have got the glass. They absolutely smash the hammer on the first stream and make it into theirs, and it's like, oh, look, it didn't shatter. It's like, yeah, Snowflake would have shattered in that, but it's the same principle, and they were skyrocketing. And if you're an independent travel company and you're going up against, like, it's the model chain. So the large companies, a lot of agency, will have in-house, they'll be producing content, they'll be targeting things in a different way. They won't have the setup at present to be able to send people out to locations or have people at those locations to provide the value and generativeness that you need to show that experience. But if you're a smaller outfit, maybe on location, on site, or do things, you're a lot more closer to the topic, you can do that. And it's not about doing it at scale, it's about doing it at a level that is validatable and trustable and building that confidence level. And I think it's a huge opportunity of alignment to go after that personalized search and go after those hyper-focused things. And it's also admitting and being honest that some of the more generic things where people aren't being specific, yeah, you probably will lose out because there's still the brand and there's still the weighty things going on before. But if you cater for, say if you're in Spain and you are a seaside resort and you've got a large collection of waterfalls, you've got the jet skis, you've got everything else, you can cater for that kind of thing. Yeah, you might be able to, this is an opportunity to go for those niche things. Spanish beach hotels with water supply, everything like that. Or people who say, I want to go jet skiing in Spain, find me a beach hotel kind of thing. That's an opportunity. That's a highly focused user who's doing research, but they know what they want. Going after things like Spanish beach holidays, that's a really broad term. There's no specificity, and you're still going to lose out on the big brand stuff potentially, like Google is happening.
Yeah, it's a great point. I had Darren Shawn recently, and he was saying similar things about, like the big companies, they've got a lot more resource, but they have a lot more red tape and a lot more process and stuff that needs to go through this person, that person. You've got the license to go and do what you want in many ways. So, and it hasn't got to be like, CGI sort of like ready for the cinema. You could do any sort of like, as long as it's half decent, like put it out.
I think that's the thing. People, if it is CGI and over-engineered, it almost becomes like one of those. Because I see the US, because I just watch TVs. I find American advertising amazing because how different it's British advertising. Well, I'm kind of sat there in the hotel and I've got it under the background, and I'm like, this is a 5-minute advert for a back cream that deals with bad back. And the level of production value that goes into it is phenomenal. And it's like, I don't understand how this is believable. If you showed that in the UK, I'd pay the extra God knows how much on Amazon to skip that kind of thing. But that's the thing, people don't want to be salty. They want to see the experience. They want to see the raw. That's why I think when you're looking at hotels or restaurants, you go to Google, you go to the photos, you look at the user uploads. Because it's great. Oh, look, there's the professionally shot picture of a souffle kind of thing. Now, you want to see the one that came out to Bob 2 weeks ago that looks like someone punched it right before they served it. Like, that's what you want. You want the user validation and the understanding and acknowledgement of it.
Yeah, I think you want both, don't you? I mean, obviously you do want some good photos, but then you want to see that user-generated stuff as well. So yeah, for sure. And it reminded me when you said about, I know it did last summer, I'm thinking that would be a really crap film compared to the original if you just had to Google it.
I think it'd be a good competition to see who had the most interest in last summer. But this is a big opportunity. I remember I was working with a client pre-COVID and worked with them for about 5-6 years, and they're a US retailer, and they only had a small kind of production team. They were doing traditional content, they were doing video content and things like that. And I'm just like, you're all into the product you're selling. How about you? I mean, you're literally producing films on this content. You're doing it for YouTube. You're doing it for socials. You're having conversations. You have a branded podcast. You're quite a big player in the category. Why don't, when you are doing this for the products, just create a simple form and almost give it a review? And then you can create review personas. But then when you're actually doing this personalization stuff, people can start like gaining an affinity with you. So there's about 4 or 5 people them doing it. So you can almost become, and my logic behind this was, do you remember the old BuzzFeed and Facebook quizzes, like which Sex and the City character are you? And you fill out the things, or which Harry Potter house and things like that, you do belonging. It's like you can go through this process and it looks like my palette mostly aligns with Sean. And I like the same kind of things that Sean does. So then you can click on a link and go, well, here's a list of products and stuff curated by Sean. And then you're getting a kind of an emotional connection. And it's also that kind of emotional driven experience, that content, which can help cater for those hyper-specific queries that people we won't call it prompting, but what they're typing is by AI, they don't know if they're prompting or not. Or they're speaking to the Gemini or whatever. And it's for this whole look, it's for information that we might miss, because if we're just producing content by keyword, we're not going to get those inflections of experience.
Yeah, and just one last example, because you reminded me, is that, I worked at a refurbished phone company, and, we competed with Apple and Samsung and LG and all those. But, because we had a bunch of engineers that were quite accessible and stuff, we could get them to do stuff, and we made really short videos on how to do this with a phone, how to do that, like change a screen, a screen cover or whatever it may be. They did really, really well. We were ranking higher than Apple and Samsung and stuff like that, and it directed a lot of customers and stuff towards our services. So obviously that was a few years ago, but similar principle.
I mean, it still works now. I mean, I've got a Pixel 3 watch, and every now and again I update my strap because I only get the sheet metal ones and they get worn and everything like that. But getting the strap off is a devil's own job. So I keep going back to this same YouTube video, which just does it very slowly and shows you how to do it. And it's got like 15 million views. It's only like 3 minutes long. And I'm like, I've monetized it. So this person's making like a killing off people just unable to take the strap off. But it's like, okay, so if you're a brand and you do that, just do the video, make it normal, get the viewership. You don't need that. Hi, I'm Dan from Watch Strap Repairs and all the rest of it. No, just give them the content, give them the jump link, satisfy the user need, leave a positive brand touch point. Leaving a positive brand touch point is more important than making sure you shed the brand name in most occasions. because you've delivered value that creates affinity. You're not kind of shoehorned it in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I do a similar thing with a boiler. Every time we've got to adapt the boiler, we've got this one video of this guy who just does boiler videos, but it does the trick because he explains it quite well. So,
I'm done the same. I recently had my kitchen redone. I've got the induction hob, and the other day I accidentally set the child lock on it. And I only know that because I had to get my phone out. I did Google Lens search through Gemini and everything else. I'm like, oh, that is the child lock. Okay, no, this is how you take it off. And I'm like, the fact it's immediately gone to this is how you take it off. I'm not the first person who's done this search.
just reassure you. Yeah, in terms of like, we'll switch gears a little bit. In terms of like, how is AI generally changing like the way people forage for information compared to traditional search engines? Like, what are the main sort of themes that you're seeing in the way people are looking?
So the interesting use is the word forage, which I assume is from some of the posts I found out. So when I say the word forage, it's relating to something called the information foraging theory, which highlights that people hunt for information much the way kind of animals forage for food. It's about finding the most useful information for the least effort and cost. It's a basic equation. It's the time it takes to find it, it's how many number of clicks, it's the cognitive load that somebody has to invest. It's why we go to YouTube to find a video to do something really simple, because we don't want to read a guide. We don't want to read this. We just literally need to see a moving picture in front of us of someone else doing exactly what we're doing. And to put it very succinctly, the theory is basically like people move through different information patches. They follow an information shape. So they go through sites, they go through sections, they go through pages. They look for clusters of the related content, and at each stage, they kind of judge that scent. They do the labels they see, do the snippets, do the headers, do the words they're skimming. Do we suggest that the information they're looking for is there, or are they at least on the path where you want it? And subconsciously, if you start applying to yourself, it's like, well, yeah, you're on a web, you Google something, you open 3-4 tabs, you skim up and down quickly, because we're looking to see if this is actually what we want. We're making it pass a very quick litmus test. Is this worth our time in this? And then the theory is just that when you find the patch that has the least effort, value high, you go back, you close other tabs, you change sites, but you drop off it very quickly if that path then looks wrong or becomes confusing. And it's that trade-off. It's reducing cognitive load, it's reducing friction. And if AI functions at a high level, it in theory should do that. It should reduce that friction. I mean, I find myself using Perplexity a bit at the moment for, I don't know, rather than like historically, I'd be watching something and I'd be like, oh, I recognize her. What was she in, kind of thing. I'd get a Perplexity now and just type in the actress's name, the character's name, or the actress's name, if I can remember them, to be fair, what they're currently in, and what else in, and just wait for that quick bullet point list. Because I don't want to have to rely for Google to either pull it through properly in an AI review or previously featured snippet. And I don't want to have to go to IMDb and then find the adverts and the slow loading to find the list. I just want the quick information. Now, it's the same in travel. So if you're planning flights and a hotel and a long weekend, typically you previously would do this whole, flights to Paris, hotels in Paris, couple weekend break in Paris. You'd have a whole string, you'd stack a number of different queries in a different way. But now, you'd forage across multiple patches. You'd look at the OTAs, you'd potentially look at airline sites, you'd look at hotel sites, you'd look at hotel aggregators, meta search. You might look at blogs, you might go on Google Maps and kind of drop ping and do all that search in this area jazz. But you first wanted to find the goal and what your first patches are. But then you can actually kind of go with AI, well, let's start with a fuzzy task. With what most AI is going to be, it's going to be fuzzy queries, it's going to be fuzzy tasks, and fuzziness makes up a lot of the entails. So it's going to be 3 nights in Paris in April for 2 people, under £1,000. So then your first patch will be, when on Google, if you did that for Google, you get the search results, you get the AOVs, you have to click off the different sites. it would be how Google does it. It gets very mixed up because it caters for the multiple dominant interpretations. It tries to be fair. It tries to be balanced. You divine AI, and it'll give you a much more distinct set of results, potentially, because it can hallucinate and break depending on the AI. But it tries to offset that cognitive load to take you to the very specific cues you're giving it. And then it takes the site level cues, the snippet cues, and it really tries to streamline that effort. So it's not whether or not it provides better results, is if it perceptionally provides better results and gets you to more destination faster with less brain effort, basically.
Yeah, which is why obviously Amazon has just like killed it in the e-commerce space because it's just so convenient.
Amazon's biggest strength is of the fact that it retails, it's the logistics, it's put behind it, in my opinion, the fact that Prime Delivery, I mean, I thought Prime Delivery in the UK was fast. I was over in San Diego last year speaking at Brighton, San Diego, got to the hotel, fell asleep, woke up the next morning. Would have been really useful if I brought a home charger with me. So I went on Amazon and I went down to the concierge, went, if I get an Amazon delivered here, can I just get it delivered to reception? Yeah, that's fine. Found a $20 wireless phone charger, ordered it at like 9:30 in the morning, got a notification about 12:30 that it had been delivered. So I went to the desk, 3-hour delivery just on Amazon Prime. And I'm like, this is madness. You can't compete with that because it's not just that it's convenient, it's reduced the friction. It's reduced the cognitive load because historically you'd have to got in a car, got on a bus, go into a store, compare different options, check out. It's a process. Whereas I offload each process to someone else completely after some very small comparison elements.
Yeah, it's great. Even the other day here, like in the UK, like when we did get something on the same day, which I couldn't believe. I ordered it around 9 a.m. and it came like 8 or 10 or something like that at night. And I was like, yeah, I never saw that before. But in terms of like, so that's interesting because, people, we know humans, we're getting very like impatient, let's put it, and we want things very quickly, we want it now. And obviously AI is only going to drive that sort of behavior forward. How do, like, if websites remain still being used, like how do you compete if you've got like some slow, claggy website? It's going to be difficult, right?
I mean, first of all, excellent use of the word claggy. Is like, I hear my alcohol say it is wonderful. I said it to my wife a couple of days ago, actually. She looked at me like I was speaking Klingon or something. But the technical foundations of the internet are the same. If you've got a slow, claggy website now, you had a slow, claggy website 2-3 years ago, and if you were performing well, it wasn't because your website was slow and claggy, it was because you were doing something else or a number of other things extremely well that compounded to performance. And this is another thing. It feels like with AI, we've kind of forgotten that it isn't just you have to hit 100 on every box. You don't have to tick every box. You can. Some of the biggest brands in the world, like eBay, for example, Amazon, like they're going to have some horrendous gremlins in their closets. How are they handling deprecated product listings? How are they doing XYZ? But they're prominent because they've built that momentum. You can have, which is why I always say to a lot of clients and prospects as well, like it's great that you're looking at how other people do stuff, but unless they're in the verbatim situation like you, it's almost irrelevant how they do it versus how you do it. And if they can take guidance on what or how not to do things. But you still need a passer, you still need everything else. And you just need to understand AI is both the live crawlers who will access the site for information, but also training data, which mostly comes through people like Common Crawl, where on you use training sets. There's going to be other influences that compound, like how well you've built your brand, how willing you are to do certain things like authorship. Like it's still great to me that your websites now go, oh, we want to get into AI better. And it's like, okay, well, how come admin's written all your blog articles? Or you get like this is Sally. Sally's been a marketing manager here for 10 years. Great. Well, does she know about snowboards? Like, does she go snowboarding? Tell me, talk to me about it. Show me evidence. Why should I trust what Sally says? Kind of thing. And that's what we kind of need to move to. And then we need to look at how we do content. And Lily Ray, I think it was today or yesterday, or it could be 3 weeks ago, to be honest, it's the LinkedIn algorithm. She posted these great examples of people doing stuff to their websites for AI and just crashing the search element of it, not realizing when it's a kind of a relationship between the two. And we need to make sure that we're producing content which is more user focused. So we want to make sure that we're not turning people off. We don't want generic marketing pages. We don't want to provide high interaction costs for things. Like, I completely understand the need for a lot of companies, like, oh, if they want to see prices, they need to log in kind of thing. Well, there's a lot of other competitors out there who aren't doing that business model, who are showing prices. So if that's the route you want to go down, then you need to understand there's a trade-off in what you can do performance. And it's all about trade-offs and opportunities, and it's reflecting my user intent a lot better.
Yeah, I've had that argument before with a client where not showing prices and things like that. And like the LinkedIn stuff is really weird. I don't know if they did it on purpose or it's like a bit of an error, but yeah, like you don't see, I see stuff like you say from weeks ago. I don't see hardly any of the new stuff. And then you'll post something and then you get likes and it was from a post you did like a few weeks ago. You're like, what is going on?
And I started just like prefacing my LinkedIn posts with, by the time you read this should have happened. Like, and just see how many predictions I get right just for, hell, I mean, there's nothing else to do with AI nowadays, is there?
But, and yeah, it's going to be interesting, obviously, when agentic experiences come more into the, if they do get adopted sort of widely, then, just how much effort people do put into the actual UX of the site and the kind of the speed of things, because, I do still see a lot of sites with, these sort of pop-ups, and if you play around with AI agents, they'll highlight that, I had to close this pop-up, then this thing came up and I had to do this. And in future, if you have all that stuff, they'll just ignore you and you won't even be involved in the conversation.
Well, that's the thing. We're in a very heavily transition period. I actually had this conversation with someone earlier today around fossil fuels and green energy, and they were complaining of like, oh, but why this company is committed to 40% green energy by 2040 or something? Well, how come they're investing in some more offshore drilling? And I'm like, they still need to get to 2040. You still need to get to 2040. Like, you can't just flick a switch and generate something out of nothing. I think. Also, please correct me if I'm, or someone in the comments on this will correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was only a few weeks ago that a nuclear power plant actually started generating more energy than it was consuming. Like, there's going to be a trade-off period where we're going to have this. And I think with marketing, like, we're seeing this in the publishing sector about business model having to adapt and change and how they generate revenue. And yeah, at the moment, agentic adoption is quite low in comparison to the mass market, I will say. It's increasing, but companies still need to generate in a certain way, and they can't just abandon that model. A good example I use with a lot of people is not wanting to slow back on voice search, but we've had voice search capabilities for like a decade plus. Like, I've got a Google Home, and apart from asking quick questions and to turn Spotify on and play certain tracks, we've not really done anything with it. And there's an adoption of image, visibly going to tell me it's basically your best friend, isn't it? But like, we're doing similar with Google Lens at the moment. Like, I use it to identify flowers and birds and like random stuff. But I still use written search, and it's the adoption path of like Google Pay and Apple Pay and putting your cards and phones. That's one step, but then to actually trust an agent to do the research, not hallucinate and find attraction. And we've still seen media. I think I want to say it was in France. But anyway, you'll find it if you Google them in the news in the last 2 weeks. Someone drove into a lake because they used ChatGPT to plan a route. And that just like, I can remember like when Garmin held the sat-nav market in the early 2000s and people were driving into canals down the wrong way down one-way streets. It's like, the media loves that sort of stuff because it gets clicks. And he's like, oh, look at that idiot, his car's wet kind of thing. And we're going to have that for a bit. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole glue on pizza thing all over again. There's always going to be media pushing the positive narrative and negative narrative, and it's going to be slow to adapt. And as long as businesses were doing pop-ups, were making money and adapting the business model as required, then there's longevity.
Yeah. I bought a Google Home and I opened it and then I never used it really again, and we put it away. I've been really tempted to get the Meta glasses. I'm just like, am I really going to use them? Is it worth paying for it? I was just like, I'll wait, see if they get better.
So about 12 years ago, I went to a Google event at the Old Trafford Cricket Ground in Manchester. And they had 2 or 3 people there from Mountain View and everything. And they were showing off like early lean balloon technology and stuff like that. They had the first version of Google Glass. And they were doing the whole take a photo wearing Google Glass and stuff like that. And I remember putting it on. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is really cool. After about 5 minutes, I'm like, yeah, I'm done now. Like, this is, I'm done. And I think it was probably a bit early for its time and whatnot. The technology wasn't as good as it is now, but people will use it. And like the Meta glasses, I see people wearing them. There seems to be an adoption market for it, but it's when it goes from gimmick to practicality. That's when that market shift's going to happen. And like I said, I've got a Google Watch. I still will pick up my phone next to me to check what's happening. And I've got the time on my laptop in front of me. I've got it on a clock in front of me. I've got it on my wrist. I still pick up my phone. And it's learned behaviours, it's schemas.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, you know, we do live in a bit of a bubble, and I do probably get carried away on here about, you know, robotics and the future of tech and stuff. But we, you know, I've used this example the other day in the chat that they built an Amazon shop up my high street, and it lasted about a year, and it was just no one was in it the whole time. No one could get their head around. No one's serving you at the counter. You pay with your phone. Like, it's just no one could get like that, and it was just empty the whole time. It's actually a good shop, and I did use it a couple of times, but it's like so much hassle. I mean, self checkout is a hassle, but like it was more hassle than that. So, like you say, why would you?
It almost creates a sense of, because of the lack of familiarity, it creates downtime to nothing sometimes. And something's not right here. And you just kind of like, ooh, what's done wrong kind of thing. And it's as great as people are adopting stuff. We are in that bubble, like you said. And you know, I was back home at my dad's this weekend, and they've got an AI powered cat flap that detects whether or not their cat has a mouse in its mouth. And if it detects a mouse, it blocks the cat flap. It's actually pretty good. It's a good bit of kit. But it was like, oh, it keeps disconnecting and we don't know why. And I literally looked at the app and it's like, oh, it's too far away from your router. So we just went to Curry. It's got a mesh network thing, put it in the kitchen, and it works. It's like, this is a base hardware thing. And this is your prime market, spending money on these tools, but we haven't even got to this stage yet. It's going to be clunky, and it's not going to be one or the other. It's not going to be, oh, this person uses ChatGPT, this person uses Perplexity, this person uses Meta. People are going to use Google. They're going to flip between the two. It's a multimodal system. It's a multi-platform. But the tail's infinite. We're looking at videos where we're getting inspired by things we see on TV, like we always have. We're getting inspired by looking at our friends' Instagram photos, and it's a completely different mindset shift, and we need to shift with it. And that doesn't mean we do it now. It means we need to be adaptive as we move forward and cognizant and looking at what is changing.
Yeah, I guess as well, like we are like the 30 bracket is kind of like the last little generation where we kind of remembered the days before internet and stuff, or like the early days of the internet versus like the youngsters. They're gonna be so used to like technology and stuff, so you know it's gonna be a whole wave of people that are just so used to just adopting all these new technologies, you know.
My first phone was a Nokia 3310, and I remember getting out. It was grey, and I remember getting my first WAP 2 enabled phone. I'd bought it from Tesco. It was grey, had a camera on it. I thought that was amazing. But I remember fishing on an afternoon in the summer holidays with one of my grandparents, and it looked like it was going to rain. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure you can get weather on my phone. I mean, I remember like, I had to call this number or whatever. And I was like, oh, you need a WAP enabled SIM card. We'll get one of them posted to you. And this was on like early Tesco mobile. And I'm like, oh my God, I can check the weather on my phone, and it's live, and it's being into a satellite and all the rest of it. And now I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to go kill some plants and zombies quickly. Like, I could kill some time. It's like, it's a complete, but that's taken, we've grown up with that technology. It's almost been habitual for us. Now, with new technology coming, where is it? It's all about adaptability. But yeah, like you said, we're in our 30s bracket. There's generations above us who have a lot of spending power, a lot of decision-making power, who aren't got that adoption phase. And there's behavioural shifts in the generation below us to the generation above us to us. And it's just being adapted as quickly as possible and as monitoring as possible to those changes and what AI is now doing to
Mm. Yeah, I remember I had a pager and
I will say that.
well, my dad used to call up and he'll leave a message and you'll get like a beep and it'll just say like, Sean, come home, your dinner's ready or something. It'll be yeah, those were the days. And the football scores, I thought that was amazing. I was like, how the hell are they beaming football scores to a pager?
I mean, my dad had pages, I didn't, but I remember even 20 years ago when I got my first iPhones and stuff like that. And I remember just how much of a pain in the ass it was to get football scores on an iPhone. And you have to download a dodgy app and make sure you have the signal. And I'm trying to work here. Just like, I was working at a supermarket. Like, just let me see how blooming like these teams are doing. And now it's just like such a granted, like the friction's reduced. So it happens. And I can actually now watch football on my phone. I can watch rugby on my phone. I'm refraining from saying the kids these days don't know how good they've got it, but it is a massive shift. And it's going to continue shifting. And kind of tying it back to some form of SEO, we have to be aware that there is a shift in how people are searching. And how Google say 18 to 24-year-olds were fastest growing demographic using Google search. That was a stat they said in Bangkok last year. More people are using Lens. 1 in 10 searches is through Lens. So it's okay. People are using images more. People are starting to use voice more. We're using infinite tail search more. It's a different ballgame. You just can't judge it by the same rules and metrics that we have previously. We need to be adaptive. And that's education to clients. It's the tool industry is going to be slow moving with that, just because if they are, I mean, there's going to be a lot of challenger tools, as we've seen with the huge rush of AI tooling, some of it mimicking the old methodology, some of it creating new methodology. It's a very exploratory transition phase for the industry, and it's exciting to be part of.
Yeah, and like on that note, like I reported on the news episode I did recently that the BBC, that obviously they're struggling to get viewers because of traditional methods of watching TV. People don't really do it anymore. So the youngsters, they're trying to get, reach those. So they're going to start putting stuff directly on YouTube, before they even put it onto proper old school TV. So they've identified like if they're going to compete with the likes of, obviously creators on YouTube that are getting millions of views and Netflix and all that, they're going to have to do that sort of thing.
I think it's also like, I know we're pushing the time, but I also think it's a demographic thing as well, because 2 really prominent examples of that, of reversals. So BBC Three, that was taken off air in 2016, Christ, 10 years ago. Wow. And it came back like 2002, 2003. So they brought it back as a channel, and it lived purely online up until in that interim period. Sky are bringing back Sky One after 5 years, where it's not existed. So I think it's a case of, this programming, which we showed on these channels, resonated with these demographics who still watch television. Because I remember watching like Family Guy on BBC Three and things like that, and then they moved childless to the online stuff. So it's like, have they now realised they've lost that demographic and not on their channels because the programming isn't how they consume it? So it's almost like that for me is a retrospective we may need to reverse this decision here kind of thing, whilst they are fighting for our next generation who, like you said, are consuming media in a much different way.
Yeah. There's so many good shows that are just like, I mention him all the time, but Bald and Bankrupt on YouTube. He's great. He goes around traveling, and there's just like shows on their own that are like getting many millions more views than any like actual traditional TV program, which is crazy.
I can remember when YouTube first came out, and it was literally just short videos and things like that. But then if you think about it, we've always had this, because everyone's mad for TikTok now and like Instagram Reels and things like that. I would like to raise you Vine from like 2010, 2011. Do you remember
I
Vine?
loved Vine. Yeah, I did love Vine, to be honest.
Can you tell me the difference between Vine and TikTok?
I mean, I don't really use TikTok, but it seems pretty similar. I thought TikTok was more like gimmicky rather than. I mean, Vine was quite gimmicky as even a bit. Yeah, I don't know. So
One of my differences for me, Vine was quite gimmicky as well, but it was just like usually with 6 or 10-second videos, something like that, very short snippet content. Whereas obviously Reels and TikToks are longer, but it was basically an early premise of what it was. But I think it was Twitter that launched it, and it just fell flat. It just went completely. But then almost 10 years later, there's something which does exactly the same thing, which is huge and creating millionaires in front of our eyes. And it's just like, it's the generational shift. Like, it not being, just because Vine failed doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It was just a wrong one.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think like even that Amazon shop up the high street, I think it's a good idea, but probably before its time. And that's the.
I went to Everton's new stadium last year for the rugby league Ashes against Australia, and they have a kiosk, which is one of the like you scan a card, walk around. No, you don't interact with people. You just take your stuff and go kind of kiosks. It was so weird. Like I just want to go up to a stall, look someone in the eyes after a bovril and a pint. I don't want to have to. It felt not natural. It felt like I was going against learned behaviours, and it'll be interesting to see if it still exists or if it's a gimmick or whatever. But I think I agree. Over time, it'll be great, but it's just that uncomfortable change, I guess.
Yeah, and like that. Yeah, they did that. Like similar thing, but where you pour your own pint, and it just ended up like no one knew what the hell was going on. And it just delayed it. Like you might as well just be in a nightclub queuing up for 2 hours to get a drink. It was like the same thing.
Well, they used to do it. There used to be a thing of gastropubs about 10 years ago, didn't there, where you could go in, you reserve a table, and on the table in the middle, there's like 3 or 4 beer pubs, and you kind of pour your own beer from the middle. And all I remember seeing on social media is just like, great. Of course, like there was so much head on some of them beers, I couldn't work out if they'd ordered ice creams or not. And the new Hill Dickinson Everton Stadium was a self-serve Guinness pub, and I'm just like, I don't know if you need a straw or a spoon with that, mate, but I'd rather pay a little bit extra for someone not to mess up my order, rather than charge me slightly less for me to mess it up and have a negative experience.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think that's the way we will go. Is like in the future, we'll be like that's like the premium thing is actually to talk to a human and do the thing.
When you're going out with friends and you're like, oh, Sean, go do the pint so you don't mess it up as the rest of us. Sean can pour a good pint. And he's like, oh, great. So he's like, hey, one is the designated driver, you got the designated pint puller. And it's just, but again, it's not a learned behaviour. We're used to queuing in a nightclub for 2 hours, not even realising if we're moving forward or not. And it's a difference, but we will familiarise with it over time. And like how the internet's almost second nature for us, this is going to be second nature for the generations coming through.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, they don't even go to nightclubs, so that's the.
But with AI and search, there's a short-termist view because if we're looking at a company, how do we maintain traffic over the next 6 months to a year? How do you maintain relevance over the next 5, over the next 10? What foundations can we do now, knowing what we know? And we're not saying we know the solution, we don't know the final answer. We don't know if it's going to change again or if it's going to revert back, or I don't know, the robots will uprise in 10 years. We don't know. But what we do know is we can start doing that planning and not take that short-termist view on it. Because again, mobile phones for us, completely natural, completely normal. Smartphones for the current generation, completely natural, completely normal. Heck knows what it's going to be in 2 or more generations' time. And we're going to be looking at the technology and like, what's that? I don't understand it.
Yeah, God knows what's going to be the tech in 10 or 20 years' time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think you posted about this recently. What's like a good prompt, and how long do you think we're going to live in a prompt-based world?
I think it's what we define as a prompt, and I think because again, we're an industry, we're in a bubble. What we look at AI as versus say what my wife looks at AI as are two completely different things. Or what, I don't know, someone who doesn't work in an industry but uses AI, or is a regular consumer. So for me, a good prompt is, it depends on the user. I mean, if we're making content or we're making imagery or doing things like that, that's got its own set of prompting rules, its own set of everything like that. My preference is I try to do everything in JSON and I use setups and everything. But if we're looking at it from a user perspective, they don't know how to do prompts. They're being educated, like I said earlier, to put in as much detail into a query, whether it's by voice, by image, a combination of image and text. Just, they're being told to put in as much information as possible. And when personal intelligence, I don't think it'll be affected too much by personal intelligence. You'll just get more granular searches like, I was a restaurant I ate at last year in London when we visited, I don't know, Buckingham Palace. What was it called? And then it'll probably look at your email, find your Buckingham Palace ticket, see the date, find the Italian restaurant, look at your Google location history, so it'll wish you to know whether or not it's busy or not based on what you've been there. And then it'll give you a result. I don't think we're going to be overly affected by that because that's a very personal context search. That's, for me, akin to someone searching for brand names to on the homepage. That user's got a very defined objective, a very defined goal. They're going to hit that defined goal regardless of whether or not you're optimizing for restaurants near Buckingham Palace or not. For me, it's going to be how we accommodate the randomness. And as I kind of said earlier, it's validating expertise, being prepared to showcase things, and almost dropping the facade of marketing speak on a lot of stuff. Like if you're writing a blog about, I don't know, the best things to, if you're a hotel resort, for example, things to do around the hotel. Oh, you can visit the nearby town of Macaska in Croatia. Great. Be upfront, that's 2 hours away. And your definition nearby might be a bit different to someone else. If that isn't a personal experience, I'm just saying, like, it's like provide as much detail as possible. Because if someone reads that blog and goes, oh yeah, I don't want to do 4 round trips, look around the town, I'm going to find something else to do. Would you rather you then can convert them onto a different path because you've gained a little bit of trust by not just trying to sell to them. You've given them enough information to make and this is something I've said for the past few years as a concept to forecast their own experience. And experience forecasting is going to be critical to dealing with clientele because if you said, oh, it's nearby town of Macaska, and then they book it all, they go, oh, Wednesday, then they go to Macaska, and they realise it's 4 hour round trip, and then they can't do jet skiing or something else like that. You've created a negative brand experience, and you've created a negative user experience, which will then be reflected in negative reviews, which will then impact you further down the line. Whereas what we want to be saying is break up that too. Okay, nearby things time takes you less than 2 hours. A day trip, maybe you could call it a day trip to Macaska as opposed to nearby. Just those little language changes just help paint that better experience forecast. And then when people are doing those personalized searches of things to do here within 2 hours, day trips from here, etc., you've got that kind of synergy with the content. And you're not then kind of doing the whole restaurants near me or things near me kind of searches. You're doing more personalized accommodations and more natural language.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was really, really well put, and it kind of reminded me of a holiday we went to in Napoli, in Naples. And yeah, I put the hotel. It looked really good. It was right near a train station. I thought that's perfect. But what I didn't know, and maybe they didn't make it too clear, is up a hill, like it was like Mount Everest, and carrying up suitcases and stuff. Was quite a journey, and every day after a long day out in the town or in the city or whatever, and you had to walk up that hill. It was because cabs weren't really around that area, so it's like that was but they made that obvious, then we wouldn't be so surprised, and then maybe we would go back if they were more transparent about all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's those little things because. Yes, the overall experience might be good, but then when it comes to repeat booking, and we talk a lot in marketing about LTV and cost of acquisition and things like that. Well, that costs that company a certain budget to acquire you as a customer. And just through a few cumulative negative experiences, you're unlikely going to go back to them. So they're not going to get a longer LTV and reduce their actual overall cost of acquisition with you. And that's the same for retail, it's the same for travel, it's the same for everyone. It's about not just getting that pound or that transaction over the line, it's about then looking at the second pound, the third pound, those further transactions, how to build that loyalty, how to create owned audiences, how to get more relevant stuff into your Gmail, encourage photos, encourage check-ins, encourage Google reviews to get that personalized search and build out that kind of persona within your own search history and things like that. And it's a long game. And we have to balance that long game with that short-term need to keep the lights on and maintain that visibility.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna stop there because we could go, but it's been a nice little trip down memory lane as well, some things. But yeah, thanks so much today, Dan. I really enjoyed it.
No, thank you very much for having me. One day will be a third time, and I'm not just talk myself out of a hat trick with it.
No, yeah, I'm sure we'll do that. Yeah, it's been good.